And we're gonna do the third session in this series of 3 mornings looking into healing the mind. What is healing the mind? And the last 2 times we have been looking a lot into what healing actually means, because I do think that it is very difficult for us to really hit the spot where healing takes place. You know, we are often trying things and looking for ways, but we're just not hitting the right spot. And so it is very important to spend time in that and to get an idea about healing, what healing is. And also, I mean, I gave an example how you can see yourself, and that actually we do not need to heal, we just need to connect with what is our true self, right? And at the moment we are connected with our ignorance, and we are connected with states of mind that are not beneficial for us, but we don't recognize it as not being beneficial because it feels so beneficial. And so there is a lot of deception going on in the mind, and we need to be aware of that and find our way to the non-deceptive way of perceiving, which is not easy, but at least we can think about it. And then last week we spoke a little bit about what happens when we experience unpleasantness and how we react to that, and how that is actually counterproductive of what we want. And we saw how anger looks as a protector, but in actuality brings more suffering. It is not protecting us from suffering, it brings us more suffering. So today I thought we can look into the nature of attachment, and what happens when there is a problem within our attachment, and where it comes from, and then what we can do about it. Is that all right? That's a little bit my plan. We can see how we go. Maybe there's an other need, but we can see. So then before we start, we adjust our motivation, thinking that whatever benefit we're gonna receive from listening to this talk and also reflecting on it, maybe tuning a little bit deeper into it, all that benefit that comes from that we don't hold that just for ourselves, but that we, whatever benefit is coming within us, that we share that with others. So if we feel afterwards that we have a method to become a more patient person, or a better person, or a more loving person, or a more compassionate person, whatever that quality that we have, we share that freely with others. We don't hold that for ourselves. And then within Buddhism, we try to set a motivation that is not just about, this life, but that is about going far beyond this life, going far beyond that little self that is grasping for happiness and wanting to get rid of suffering. So we are trying to set a motivation of wanting to become enlightened, enlightenment being a state in which we have developed all the qualities that can be developed, and in which we have removed all the stains from the mind, all the obscurations from the mind, so that we can see both natures of reality, both the conventional nature and the ultimate nature of reality simultaneously. There is no obstruction anymore. And the only reason why we want to develop that state of mind is so only in that state of mind do we have the capacity to be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. And so that is the ultimate purpose of us engaging in Buddhist practices, in being here this morning. And then with that in mind, we can take refuge. Sorry, Yashin. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So, and then we can start. So as I mentioned before, last time we looked into how we normally react, how we... and this is a reaction that happens in every moment of mind. So when feelings arise in the mind, we can have pleasant feelings, we can have unpleasant feelings. When unpleasant feelings arise, we react with aversion. We try to separate from these feelings, which is our wish to be free of suffering, right? This is how the wish to be free of suffering, how we practice that on a daily basis. When there is unpleasantness, I have an aversion. And so, or when I have discomfort, I don't like it. So I start looking for comfort and I start looking to get away from that discomfort. So these feelings arise in every moment of mind. So these reactions are also there in every moment of mind. Very, very subtle, sometimes less subtle, but they are there. It's like we cannot turn that off. You know, it's like a radio that is on all the time. It's reacting all the time. And so when we have an unpleasant feeling arising in the mind, what we try to do is that aversion arises, trying to separate us from that experience. So when we, for instance, get harmed by somebody, the way that aversion works is that we are first trying to separate from that outer experience. For instance, somebody shouting at us, maybe we turn around and we walk away, right? Aversion is doing that. Or maybe we start yelling back. That's also aversion doing that. And if that person keeps yelling, maybe we hit that person in an attempt to make that suffering that they cause to stop. Right, so then we might harm that other person. So these are reactions that are coming from aversion. These are reactions that are coming from I'm suffering. I'm experiencing something that is unpleasant. I don't like this. I want to get rid of it. I want to move away from it. And so then when we cannot walk away from it, then what might happen, for instance, we are somewhere in a place where we cannot walk away. We are in our own home and something happens which is unpleasant. Normally we do not walk away, we stay, right? But then we have to find a way to deal with that unpleasantness. So then either we distract ourselves, we're going to look for something that we like, let's not talk about this difficult topic. Let's watch a movie tonight, let's distract ourselves from that difficulty that is here. Sometimes we suppress these unpleasant feelings. Sometimes we deny them or we even dissociate from them because we can't cope with them. And so then what we saw last week is that when we do that, when we try to separate from the feelings by pushing them away, by suppressing them, these feelings are not going away naturally. They stay in the mind. And as long as we are suppressing them, they will start pushing back, So the only way that we can get rid of unpleasant feelings is to allow them to arise in the mind. Because every feeling that arises in the mind, once it has reached its peak, it will naturally dissolve back into the mind. You know, feelings cannot stay in the mind. Feelings have no power in and of themselves. They come and they go. They come and they go. You know, there's not one feeling. If we think about it and we watch our feelings, there is not one feeling that stays in the mind. You know, sometimes we have the feeling, oh, I always feel like this, right? So we have these feelings that might be not so nice, but when they come up, it feels like I always feel like this, right? But then when we check, we have to say, well, I feel sometimes like that, but when I feel like that, it feels like I'm always feeling like this. You ever have this feeling? Like, I always feel like this. But when you check, when you do a reality check, there is not one feeling that is always there. Feelings are sometimes there, and sometimes there is a similar feeling that keeps popping up. And maybe we don't know what to do with it, or maybe that's a karma that we have to work through. But it looks like that feeling is always there. So we need to know, no, that feeling is not always there. Feelings cannot be always there, impossible. Also, once a feeling has been processed, once the feeling has been experienced, it is gone forever. Similar feelings might arise, but that one is gone forever. You know, once I have had the courage to feel it, it's gone. So our aversion is there to protect us from discomfort, from suffering. And if we really look into what aversion and anger are doing, is they're actually contributing to our suffering. So they appear in one way and they do the opposite. True. Sometimes you think, if I just get really angry now, then I get rid of these horrible feelings. Right? But then we have to check, is that really true? Is that really true that when I get very angry now, that these feelings are gone? And how long are they gone for? You know, maybe they're gone for a little while, but then they come back. And what if I have the feeling that they're gone? You know, then what kind of imprint do I give to my mind? Maybe I let my mind know that, oh, this is the way to get rid of unpleasant feelings. So every time when I have something unpleasant arising, I become angry because I learned that that is the method to get rid of them. Right? So then imagine what kind of persons that we are becoming. And there was a time that we learned this, no? When you feel unpleasantness, you should shout, you should hit the pillow, you should do something in order to get it out of your system. I'm not saying that you should never do that, but if you've got to use that as a method, you know, I think Chogyam Trungpa, the students that he had in the beginning, they had to meditate for quite a long time, just sitting on the cushion, doing mindfulness, being present with themselves. And there was this group of students that had this method of getting rid of any unpleasant feeling that they're having by screaming and by getting angry. And so they came to do a course with Chogyam Trungpa, and they had to sit in meditation. And then at a certain point, that unpleasantness is coming up, and they felt like, oh, we have to shout, we have to do something with it. So they told Chogyam Trungpa, like, we have to get out, we need to get rid of these feelings. And he was like, you know, if you do that, what you're actually doing is you create a habit of anger, and you create more and more anger in the mind. And eventually you cannot be with unpleasantness at all, because you have learned a habit, which is not going to help you. Right? So he said, please don't leave, just keep sitting. Sit with the unpleasantness, and learn a different way of being there. We do not need the anger to get rid of the unpleasant feelings. So the reason why anger is an aversion is looking like they protect us, but they're actually harming us, is because they are based on the self-grasping mind. And the self-grasping mind is that mind that holds onto the self, holds onto me, or holds onto I in a way that is opposite to how it exists in actuality. And I'm sure you have heard this before in the teachings. So the way that it apprehends the self is opposite to how it actually exists. So then everything that arises in dependence upon that self, that I, is also opposite to reality. So anger appears as protecting from suffering, but it is actually causing suffering. It's deceiving us. And so the last time we saw what we can do with unpleasant feelings, right? We can be mindfully present. We have a kind self-talk. When we experience suffering, recognizing that we are suffering, recognizing that we need connection, we need attention, we need loving kindness, we need someone to be there for us, and we're gonna be that for ourselves. And then we let ourselves know, you're not alone in this. You're not alone in this. The nature of the suffering that we experience, when we experience the suffering of suffering, because of that aversion, trying to disconnect us from that suffering, that feeling of suffering, there is the aloneness that we experience within that, or the loneliness that we experience within that, like I'm completely alone. Nobody understands me. Nobody is here for me. That comes somehow as a result of the aversion. So when we talk to ourselves, when we are suffering, then we're saying, you're not alone. I'm here for you. I'm listening to you. I'm taking care of you. Right? That in itself, if you really truly listen to yourself, you are already healing. Right? So that's what we did last time. And then we're going to look into attachment, because attachment is what arises when we experience pleasant feelings. Right? Attachment says the feeling comes in the mind, and then it wants to go back. It wants to dissolve back into the mind. And while it is dissolving back into the mind, attachment comes and says, oh, I want to hold on to this. This is so nice. I want to have more of this. Right? So that is what it says in the Abhidharma Kosha, that as soon as a pleasant feeling arises, attachment arises in dependence on that. So what is it that attachment tells us that it is doing? Just as that anger and aversion is telling us, I'm protecting you, attachment is telling us, I will give you what you want, or I will give you what you need. Attachment also makes sure that we are not separated from that what we love. And so that attachment is also a disturbing emotion, which comes from the 8 worldly dharmas, which is the pleasure that we experience in this life is as ordinary beings who have not met the Dharma, who do not have high realizations. These pleasant experiences is the only happiness that we have. Right? We do not have any other happiness. Although in Buddhism, we talk about other happiness. We talk about the happiness that is the freedom from the afflictions. But as long as we have not found that freedom of the afflictions, the only happiness that we have is the pleasurable feelings that arise in the mind. And I don't know, at the moment we are living in a time, and I think a lot about that, because we're living in a very crazy time, right? In Buddhism, we say that we're living in degenerate times in which the afflictions are really high. But if we look into society, it is like everything is about money. Everything is about selling you something. And it's like, who is going to buy the stuff that they offer us? It is our attachment that says, yes, I want this. So what they're doing is they whatever they have for sale, whatever they have to sell, they package it in a way that attachment says, yes, I like that. Right? And we are told that it's really good to have that. And we are told that when we have that, we're really going to be happy. We're going to be part of the group. We're going to have We are seen in society as something important or something successful. All kinds of ideas are attached to that, or are presented to us, that attachment wants, right? Because attachment likes to have all kinds of sensory things, sensory pleasures. Attachment likes to have a reputation. Attachment likes to hear that we are wonderful, that we are beautiful, that, we like to hear pleasant sounds. Attachment likes to have comfort. And all that is advertised. We give you that. Our product is going to give you that. Right? And then when attachment believes it, we buy it. And then we come home with it. And then how soon comes the dissatisfaction that we think, oh my God, did I buy that? It's not really doing it. Now I'm home and I have it. I think it's not really doing it. It looks so different as how it looked in the shop. And we all know that. But sometimes I think, we have such a striving for that happiness at the moment in society. Everyone is so busy just doing that, working so hard just to get that. And the promise that is given us that it's going to make us happy. But what is happening is that everyone is so busy, everyone is so stressed, everyone is so restless. Never, whatever they're doing, it's never good enough. Whatever they, then you finally buy that big house, and then you need to take 2 or 3 jobs in order to pay it off. And then, so you become your slave, the slave of your own attachment. Right? And we need to recognize that is how the mind works, but that is also what our society is using at the moment. It's using that very strongly. And if we are not awake enough, we easily become victim to that. Right? You can see people who have never heard about these teachings, how they run after their attachment. Right? And how they believe in it. Or I really need to have all this in order to be somebody. And we need to see that it's never going to bring us the satisfaction that we actually want. It cannot do that. Attachment cannot do that. Because attachment is a delusion. Attachment is something that disturbs the mind. The happiness that we are looking for is not a pleasure that disturbs the mind. We are looking for a more peaceful happiness. Attachment can never bring that. Impossible. Attachment can come with some pleasure, but it's never lasting. It always will only last very short, and then it's gone again. And then sometimes I have the feeling it's like burning newspaper. It goes very quickly, and then we are left with a lot of ashes. Right? It's like nothing is there, just the ashes. So attachment, sometimes say, oh, attachment is bad, right? But if we look into the motivator, what brings us into this body, into this life, into this real, is our desire, is our attachment. Right? Without our attachment, we cannot be here, not in this state. Right? Being ordinary human beings, what brings us here is our attachment. And then if we look into how human beings function, they are very much connected with each other. I'm not sure if it's on the basis of attachment or if it's compassion that binds us together. Sometimes I have the feeling that the fabric of society is attachment. We have these relationships from our family, from our friends, from the neighborhood, from our work environment, and we are tied together in a certain way. And I feel like there is a kind of a fabric that that brings together society as a whole, that makes us human beings. We have something to do with each other. We have some care for each other. We also have some attachment for each other. And so His Holiness, so I'm not sure if it's attachment or if it is compassion or if it is both, right? And His Holiness, when he speaks about compassion, then what he says is that when the baby is born, we can see compassion, that is naturally there because the mother is all the time there for the child, right? The child cannot live on its own. The child has no capacity to survive without the parent or without the mother or without the caregiver. The child fully depends upon that. And so His Holiness says then the mother takes care of the child through compassion. The mother wants the child to be free of suffering. The mother wants the child to be happy. So that is driven by compassion. But I think attachment is also there, right? Attachment is that bond that mom and the child have with each other. It's like if there was no attachment, when the child is crying, the mother needs to have an impulse. I have to go. I need to take care of this, right? I think it comes from attachment, but I'm not sure. we have to investigate if that is attachment or if that is compassion. Also, the child has attachment, right? So the child, in order to bind with the mother, needs to be able to call the mother, needs to be able to somehow hook the mother. So does that with crying, does that with, other ways of being. You hook the mother so that the mother gives you the attention that you need, or gives you the food what you need, or gives you whatever else you need. So I think there is an attachment from two ways. And when we talk about the psychology, then I'm sure you all have heard that what we would like to happen is that the child is attached in a safe way to the mother, right? And if that doesn't happen, then there are attachment issues in the child later on in life. So binding safe with the mother means that if I need mom, I need to be able to call mom and mom is coming, right? I know that mom is coming. And then when I grow up at a certain point, I don't need mom there to be there all the time, but I need to know that mom is at least somewhere in the house. Right? I need to feel safe in that relationship with mom. If I don't feel safe, I have a problem, right? I have a problem later in life based on that attachment. So, one big problem with attachment is that the mother cannot give the child what it needs. So the child has unmet needs. The child is asking for something and the mother maybe cannot hear it, doesn't understand it, cannot connect with the child where the child is asking for something, where the child has a need. The mother is maybe very busy, or maybe the mother is occupied with her own stuff. Maybe the mother is very wounded and is so absorbed in her own wound that she cannot give that attention to the child, right? So then the child grows up with unmet needs. Very basic needs are not met. And we can later see what kind of problems that can come from that. I don't know if you have heard of Gabor Mate. I think he has a Buddhist background. He has studied, I think, Buddhism a lot. And he speaks about two basic needs that we all have when we come to this planet. One is the need for connection, and one is the need for authenticity. So the need for connection is that, and especially at the beginning of life, we have that need for connection in order to survive. If our need for connection is not met, we have big problems. If our need for connection is not met, how to say that? If the need for connection is not met, the child needs to starts looking in other ways how to meet the need for connection. For instance, the child is, I don't know, very young, laying in bed, is calling out for mother, and the mother cannot hear it. Maybe the mother is downstairs, very busy, other children, and the mother cannot hear it. So the child feels like, I need connection, but I cannot connect. So then the child starts screaming. The mother can still not hear it, and the mother is not showing up. So the child goes then through a whole psychological, it's creating its own samsara. There is a chain of reactions happening, right? And that maybe can for everybody different. But you can imagine that when you are screaming for something and it's not coming, you get frustrated, you get angry. You might have the feeling that I am not capable of providing myself with what I need. You might then become very angry at yourself. You might turn the anger that you first had towards mom, come, mom, I'm calling you. You might turn that towards yourself. I'm such a loser. I'm not even able to give myself what I need. And then I might completely shut down and have the feeling that, wow, I'm so incapable that I'm not even going to show up anymore. And I might completely somewhere disappear in my mind. And myself, maybe my authentic self cannot come to the surface anymore. Right? We can think about situations like that. So we have the need for connection, we have the need for authenticity. If these two needs are met, that's really fantastic. That means that we are born in a situation where we feel connected with everyone, where we feel safe, and we feel safe enough in that connection to be our true self, to be our authentic self. We have nothing to hide. We do not have to pretend. We do not have to please anyone. We can just be who we are, and we are loved for that. Right? This is the dream situation. I would wish that for each and every little child that is born here on this planet, to have that, to meet that. So if there is a tension between the need for connection and the need for authenticity, then the child needs to make a choice, right? What is going to be more important, authenticity or connection? For instance, the 2-year-old really, wants something but doesn't get it and gets so out of its mind, throws a tantrum, and it is like, but I want to have it. I want to have it. This is who I am, and I'm angry, and I don't care for it. So then mom or dad might say, "Excuse me, you with your angry temper, go and sit on the hallway, or go and sit on the stairs, or I don't know what you do in New York. You put the child away for a while. And when you can behave, you can come back." Which means the child gets, by being authentic, showing that part of itself, gets disconnected from the group. And is only allowed to reconnect when it can behave in a proper way. So then you can think, so what kind of lesson do we give the child when we do that? We're going to use the need for connection in order to let the child behave. All right? We all know these situations, I think. So is that wrong or right? I think sometimes that might be the method that we need to use, but sometimes it's not correct. Right? We have to check. We have to always be aware that people are striving to be authentic. And when we punish them with disconnection, something happens in their psychic. Right? And we can think about it for ourselves, where it has happened to us, or where it is still happening to us, where we feel like I always have to kind of compromise there. I can never be really myself. Right? We all meet situations that we need to compromise. So in the first years, when the child needs that connection in order to survive, and there is a tension between the need for connection and the need for authenticity, the child will choose for the connection. Right? The child cannot lose the mother. The child cannot lose the caregiver. The child needs to keep that connection because it is the mother who's coming with the food. It's the mother who is cleaning them. It's the mother who is taking care of them, right? Or any other caregiver. So the child needs that connection in order to survive. It's more important than the authenticity. So then when the child has its needs not met and it's looking for that connection, right? So when we have unmet needs, it feels like I'm disconnected, right? I'm trying to connect, but I'm not connected. And so then we can try to think, how does it feel when we have unmet needs? What kind of feelings arise in the mind when we have unmet needs? Have you ever thought about that for yourself or recognize for yourself that there are things that you feel maybe that you can't ask for, or you have parts within yourself that you have the feeling, I just cannot connect. There's something in me that is having a voice, but I cannot connect. I don't know how to do that. Do we have that, or is that just me? Sometimes we might not recognize that we have unmet needs. It took me a long time to even understand, that how it feels like when the needs are not met, and what that brings in your psychic, and what you can do about it, is I had a mother that was suffering a lot when I was born. And so she was very occupied with herself. She was not there emotionally. She was not there. And so I ended up with this feeling of, when I wake up in the morning, I feel like there's nothing, like nobody's here. Nobody's here. And I had that for years. And in the beginning, I didn't even observe that feeling because it was so normal to have that. Then at a certain point, I started to notice it, and that I completely space out when that is there, because there is nobody and I don't even know what to do. And it brought me back to the time that I was a baby, I think, waiting for mom, but nobody was there, right? And so then that feeling is there, and it can paralyze you. It's you have tried everything that you can and nothing is happening, and you feel like you're totally incapable of having that need for connection met early in the morning, right? But so finding your unmet needs, I don't know. I don't know if it is worthwhile, to understand yourself. Where are the things that I'm doing, and where are the things that I'm feeling about myself? Where are they coming from? Because I think if we can identify, that is actually an unmet need that I have, that I'm covering up in this way, then I can do something about it. I can somehow help myself to have these needs met. If I have that need for connection when I wake up in the morning and I have the feeling there is nobody, I need to somehow start giving that to myself. The moment I can do that, that problem is gone. Then I wake up in the morning and I feel like, I'm not alone. I'm not waiting for somebody. I'm just here, and I start my life. When we have unmet needs, one thing that we can do in order to find that, to meet, or to find that need, or to find connection with that need, is that we, for instance, if our need for connection is not met. For instance, I go back to my mother, right? She's so occupied with her own suffering, she cannot meet my need. So what do? I'm going to take care of my mom. I'm going to meet her needs, because when I meet her needs, she might be able to connect with me. So I find my needs by giving her what she needs. So what is that? When I give my mother what she needs, is I become a people pleaser, right? I'm going to think, how do I make my mom happy? What does she need? I give it to her. When we get what we need, we feel happy. When we feel happy, we have more capacity to be there for others. Right? So if I have a need as a child, then I can have a strategy in which I start giving my parents what they need so that they can give me what I need. So I become a people pleaser. Right? You too, Sarah? Or you have a question?
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I hear what you're saying. And I guess I wanted to clarify, because as you're pointing out, once we start deciphering and seeing that there's a hole, it can be very tricky to find the right way to fill that hole, right? To find
Yes.
the right way. And also, one thing I've seen in both myself and others, it's like when there's a deep wound, it can be, we can take a lot of actions that we think are wise in trying to get those needs met, when actually, we can
Yes.
look back and be like, oh, I was trying all these other ways. So yeah, it just gets very messy to kind of discern what is the right response.
Yes. Yes. That's true. That's true. That's true. I mean, they have if you the real need for connection, and not being able to find that connection is all the addictions that we are having. We can trace that back to that. Any addiction that we have, I think, is an expression of our need for connection, and we cannot find it in a normal way, so we find it in another way, right? The moment we find connection, the need for the substance or the activity that you are attached to or addicted to is, it disappears. We say that young people are very addicted to their phones, right? They have this addiction to them all the time. Maybe we ourselves are also addicted to the phone. And somebody, I think it was a monk somewhere in Thailand or in Japan. So he had these groups with young people coming, and they had their phone. And what he said is, actually, your problem is not that you're addicted to the phone. Your problem is that you do not know how to connect with unpleasant feelings within yourself. You cannot be with discomfort. And he would teach them how to be with discomfort. And the moment you can be with your discomfort, there's no need anymore for the phone. You connect with yourself. You connect with the deeper levels in yourself. No need for a phone. No need for an addiction. That's healing, right? That's why healing happens, in the connection. So there was one psychologist not one psychologist, sorry, in the 50s and the 60s. They are, of course, very interested in the way that attachment works, and in a way that we need relationships, how the child is looking for that. And so what they first thought is that the baby is so attached to the mother because the mother is the one who gives the milk or who gives them food. And then some psychologists said, but is that the only thing that a child is attached to, or is there something else? Maybe also there is also the need for comfort, and the need for love, and the need for emotional connection, and the need for the child to develop in a healthy way. Maybe it's not just the bottle, right? Maybe it's not just the breast. Maybe there is something else that the child actually needs. And so they did some tests with monkeys in order to find out what the need is from the monkey. And so one thing that they did is they had young monkeys and they put them in a separate cage away from the people that or the monkeys that they were connected with. So they put them in social isolation. And these monkeys in social isolation, they started to really behave strangely. They became very disturbed. They sometimes would just stare blank and, like have no reaction, become apathic. Some they started to circle in the cage, and others they started to self-mutilate. So we can think about these children who are doing that, self-mutilating. What is that? That's need for connection. They need something and they cannot find that. So they start cutting themselves in order to at least feel themselves, or to not feel that need for connection that has not been met. So being in isolation makes you a bit mad, right? In all kinds of different ways. Then these monkeys were reintroduced to the group. But even then, when they went back into the group, they stayed separate from the group. And some they became so unhappy that they even refused to eat and die. So even when we separate somebody for periods of time, and for instance, when you don't talk to your child for a while, right? Sometimes parents do that. I'm not talking to you anymore for a week, in order to punish you or in order to make you learn something, right? So what happens inside that human being, that child, is that you isolate them, right? So something weird happens in the mind. It's not natural what you're doing to your child, right? So that is one thing that is that separation is damaging. Connection is healing, right? We're looking for healing. Connection is healing. So then even when the children or the monkey children were not fully isolated, there were little monkeys that were raised without their mothers. And even they developed all kinds of social deficits. And so what they also did is that they put some pampers or diapers in the cage, and they saw that these monkeys who did not have their mother there, they would attach very much to the diapers and they would play with them. And so they thought, oh, maybe these monkeys, they're getting some comfort from the diapers, even if there's not a mother there. They're looking for the comfort of connection. And so then in order to test that, he had monkeys and he put them in different conditions. He gave them like a surrogate mother. So some monkeys, they got a surrogate mother that was made out of wire and wood. And another one got a surrogate mother made out of rubber and soft cloth. And then they would give the milk bottle to the mother made out of wire. And another situation, they would give the bottle to the mother made out of cloth. And so the monkeys that were with if they could choose between these mothers, they would spend most time with the mother that would feel soft, that had cloth around it, not with the wire mother. Even if the wire mother had the milk, they would go to the mother, have the milk, and then they would go back to the mother where they could have some physical comfort, even if it was a surrogate. And so then they looked into that when the child is comforted, and then they're faced with new and scary situations, what happens to them? And then they saw that even if they gave the monkeys a surrogate mother, if that mother would be present and there was like something would happen, maybe a sound or something was there to see that initially would scare the monkey. If there was a surrogate mother, the monkey actually would explore and walk away from the surrogate mother, try to explore what's going on there, and then go back to the surrogate mother and then explore again. But the one who had no mother, who was in isolation, would just sit paralyzed, doing nothing, paralyzed with fear. Or they would suck their thumbs, or they would, do maybe it goes towards a bit autistic behavior that you just go into yourself and you cannot come out of it anymore. And so that showed them how important that is, that that it is not just the mother who is giving the food to the baby or who's taking care of the body, but you actually need to give that child something so that it feels emotionally connected, so that it feels comfort with physical touch, so that it feels, because I think when you touch the baby, when you really touch the baby, you give the baby imprints from the body. You give them feedback from themselves. And when you give them emotional connection, you kind of reinforce who they are. You validate that child as a human being, right? The child gets information about who he or she is by the information that it receives from the caregivers. So when they give not enough information, the child gets not enough information to know who he or she is. And it can feel like you feel like I'm not validated. I'm constantly looking for validation. We do that, no? Yes, Sheila.
So would you connect that with like a lack of self-confidence?
Well, it can go there, right? It's like if you have a lot of unmet needs, it can be that you feel like you don't feel comfortable in yourself, or you don't feel capable, or you don't feel you don't have enough experience or reinforcement that you're doing it right. So you're never sure how you do it. There's no proper feedback. Yes, for sure. And I think even not giving enough physical contact to the baby can make that you don't feel confident in your body. Or when the child is talking, and you don't get a proper feedback, you might feel uncomfortable or not capable or of talking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or making decisions. You have never. And now I don't want to throw that all on the parents, but I do think, there is a karma there too. It's like, where is the lack of confidence, self-confidence coming from? I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's coming from the gossip. It's a result of gossip. Or talking too much nonsense, too much nonsense. I think it is written there. So it is not, but of course, then in order for that to become manifest, we need also other conditions, right? Then I like to work on both levels, so that you watch your speech and you take care of that, so that you are careful with the words that you're using and what you're talking about. And then at the same time, you can work with how can I give myself a feedback so that what I did not receive when I was young, I somehow do receive that. Right? We can, you can do a lot of inner child work where you visualize yourself as a child, where you did not get that reinforcement or that validation. And maybe you see yourself standing in front of your mom and dad asking for it, maybe non-verbally, you're not saying it, but you're asking for it. And they don't give it because they're too occupied with each other or, watching telly or whatever. You can see, oh, they're not giving me that. And then you feel your own insecurity coming, and you feel your own weirdness, like, I don't know how to do this. And so when you connect with that child, you can just visualize that child, and then you're going to sit on the couch and you're going to talk to that child. And you say, I see you, and you came to tell me something. What is it that you wanted to tell me? And you go in a conversation with that inner child. And when you do that, and when you truly connect with that inner child, you will feel that something is changing inside you. Right? It's like, yeah, what are we actually doing? But I think there are many parts in our mind that are disconnected. And when we want to become, I think when becoming a Buddha means that we connect all these parts with each other and let them shine, right? Because they all have the capacity to have all the qualities and have no obstructions. So if we want to become a Buddha, we need to reconnect with all the parts in ourselves, because they all contribute to that Buddhahood. We don't have to get rid of any of the parts that we have, right? We don't want to get rid of any of the parts. We want to use all the parts, because these are all energies of us that can transform into a Buddha. Right? So there's nothing that is inherently bad in us. There's nothing that is inherently damaged inside us. There's nothing that is inherently, we are just disconnected from our essence, and there are many levels in our being. So we start on the outside, and sometimes we are talking about, we are peeling the onion, right? We go deeper and deeper inside. But there are layers of disconnect, and you start where you are, what life is providing you in this moment. That's the beginning of your journey. And then the journey will show itself where it wants to go. Right? You cannot write down the journey, or we're going to first do this and then that and then that, and you do not know how it goes. You just know this is what is presenting itself today. So that's the place where I start. This is something that can be healed today, or this is something that I can start healing today. And then I start working with helping these parts of myself to reconnect. And then at a certain point, something new arises in the mind, and you think, I haven't seen that one, So then that is the next one to work with.
So would you also say that karma plays a role in all of that?
Karma definitely plays a role in all of that. I think the stronger the karma, I think what we meet in the first years in our life is really the strongest karma, right? It's the deepest karma. It's like that is what really pulls us into this body, into that family, into the wound, almost like whatever wound has been caused in these first years. It's like that is really the karma of this life that we need to resolve. Right? But then that wound also comes about in dependence upon our relationship with our parents. But that is also karma. Right? Everything that we experience is karma. The way that we react is karma. But it doesn't mean I cannot do anything about it. Yes, it is a karma that I ended up in that family and experience all the things that I experienced. But it is also my karma to meet the Dharma. It is also my karma to meet all kinds of healing techniques that can help me to reconnect with myself. Because, I became a people pleaser, so I gave up myself in order to find connection, to have some connection. So I need to heal that. I need to reconnect with my authentic self. Right? I can only do that when I'm a grown up. I cannot not do that as a child, because as a child, I need that connection too much. So as a grown up, in order to become more my authentic self, I had to sit a lot with loneliness, right? Because as a people pleaser, you look for that connection, which means I do not have connection. So I'm looking for it. And as long as I'm looking for it, I don't feel that loneliness that I actually experience, which is the absence of my connection. right? So then when I'm going to undo this, and when I go back to myself, I need to experience all that loneliness that was there when I was a kid that made that I started to become a people pleaser. Right? So in order to find my authentic self, I have to sit with myself. And sometimes I feel completely desolated, like nobody's here, like no connection. And so then I have to work through that loneliness, sit with it and be with myself and talk to myself and recognize myself. And then it disappears. The loneliness disappears. The deep hole that was there inside starts to disappear. We don't have to fill it, we only have to reconnect. Not only, but it's not not easy.
Thank you. A lot of work.
I mean, what else do we have to do? What else is there to do? It's like, it is complex, but I find it also very fascinating because you can find all the teachings back in that work, and you sometimes I have the feeling, especially with the Mahayana Buddhism, that we jump so quickly into the high level of practices, but we don't really look into these 8 worldly dharmas that have a lot to do with our aversion and our attachment and how we have been programmed due to our upbringing in these 8 worldly dharmas. What were the situations that my attachment, for instance, with attachment, if I have unmet needs, right? I already have a problem with my attachment. I will have the tendency to distract myself. I will have the tendency maybe to get addicted. I have the tendency to harm myself. I have a tendency because there's so many unmet needs, right? So then I can blame it. But when I go straight to the Mahayana practice and try to become a bodhisattva and practice bodhicitta, because I know that so well as a people pleaser, right? How to make other people happy. So I go straight there. Oh, yeah, I know the bodhisattva path. That's what I've been doing my whole life, right? Taking care of others. But then the way that I practice that bodhisattva path is by neglecting my own needs or by giving up my own needs, by giving up my authenticity, right? So then at a certain point, I'm gonna hit a wall, it's like something is gonna go wrong. You're gonna crash. Because the practice of bodhicitta is based on first taking care of yourself, first understanding your own suffering, right? And we skip that as a people pleaser. We skip because that's what we learned. That's how we survived, right?
No, I totally relate. I'm a people pleaser.
Yes,
and I feel like
it's a people pleaser.
Yeah.
That's why I think that's why we end up in the Mahayana, because we like to make people happy, right? We like it, but the basis of the people pleaser is that there is a fear there that if I don't do it, then they won't like me. If I don't do it, they will disconnect me. If I don't do it, I will be alone. So the making others happy is coming from fear. Deep down inside. And there is also the pleasure of making others happy, but there is the fear. So when you stop becoming a people pleaser or you want to stop doing that, there was always the fear, oh my God, if I don't do that, they're not going to like me. Right? And so that is what I meant with that loneliness. So I have to take that risk that they're not going to like me. And then I have to sit with that fear. Oh my God, and then after that comes the loneliness. And I need to sit through that to see that actually nothing happened, except I went internally through something really scary. And once I went through that, I went back to these people and everything was fine. I didn't do what they wanted, but everything was fine. So as an adult, we can then see that, okay, it's kind of safe to say no, or even if they don't like me anymore, but I like myself now because I take care of myself. So you repair that relationship with yourself. right? That's really what the people pleaser needs to do. Take care of your unmet needs. Take care of what you need. Reconnect with that authentic self that you needed to leave behind in order to stay connected with others. Reconnect with that so that you do not let yourself down, so that you don't reject yourself. Because that's what the people pleaser does. And it hurts a lot. You need to let go of yourself in order to stay connected. And that letting go of yourself is like a rejection.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then others, yes, anyway.
Thank you. Yes, I can totally relate.
Relate, yeah. Carolyn.
Yeah, I had a question about a situation that caused me a lot of suffering recently, where I met a romantic partner and I thought it was going pretty well in a certain direction. And then after, about 2 months, we'd been seeing each other. And we talked about what we were doing, and we agreed, that we both wanted monogamy. We liked where it was headed, that kind of thing. But then he said these two words that really broke my heart. He said, no relationship. Like, I won't be in a committed relationship. And I said, well, you're kind of already in one. But he really was like, I'm not in a place for this. And so I chose my authenticity. And I said, if you want physical commitment without an emotional commitment, I cannot do that. And it was very, very difficult for me because I do care deeply for this person. And I think our connection was very genuine. And so I didn't choose the people pleasing, but it's been very hard for me to let go of this attachment. I practice Tonglong, where, I think about the suffering of heartbreak and allowing someone to be free, for the sake of both of us, and that there are others in the world, obviously, who know this pain. And loving kindness, starting with myself and then this other person and then other beings in the world. But it's I'm 5-6 weeks out of it, and I think you can see it on me. It's still very painful. And I just was seeking some guidance or advice here, to I know I chose my authenticity here. I know I chose right, for both of us, not just myself, but yeah.
So you said, I deeply care about this person.
Yes.
And I would say, did he also care about you?
I think to his ability, but I don't think
but did he care just as deeply about you as you cared about him? No. So what makes that you want to be with someone who doesn't deeply care about you?
Oh, yeah, no, I want a person, right?
Right. So I know, I mean, you have said, I do want that, right? And I'm going to choose now for myself. This is my need. I need that. And he cannot give that to me. So I choose for myself. So I think that's a very good choice for you, that on the long run will bring you much more than that you stay with him now.
Yeah.
But I would look into, why is it that I'm so attached to a person who doesn't deeply care about me? So I wonder, how were you cared for when you were young? Is this
yeah, much of what was said here really hits home. My mother had depression. She started antidepressants when I was maybe 13. It was the first time I came home and she asked me how my day was.
Right.
There is a lot there.
Right. So I think the pain that you're feeling is maybe not so much in relation to this person, but that person or your situation triggered the pain that you experience in relation to your mom. You know, her emotionally not being there for you. And you say, I'm going to feel that now. I'm going to feel that, what I felt as a kid. And you're healing that kid.
Right. Yeah. That kid's still in me. That kid is a part
that's
of
still
me.
in you. Yes.
I care for me and all the parts of me.
Yes. 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 And so then you're also going to feel all that pain that that kid experienced, you know,
Right.
and I think that is what you're feeling now. So I wouldn't put it too much on him, but more think about that kid and think about how old is the one that is feeling this.
That makes sense. Like I've assigned it to him, but it
Yes.
doesn't belong to him.
No.
It doesn't belong to me and it belongs to that
Yes.
child. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Good. All right. I'll say a little bit more. Not too much.
Honorable, there's one more question from.
Oh, sorry. I don't see everyone in. Oh, yes, Sarah. Sorry. Yes.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I just, you said something, you were just talking about the 8 worldly dharmas, and I just thought that was a really interesting point. I mean, I've heard about them and read of them for years, but I guess I've never really worked with them in the way that I think you're suggesting, and which is to really look at how all of our kind of, wounds are somewhere, is what I'm hearing you're saying, in the 8 worldly dharmas. So that it just is
I think the wound is before that. I think the real wound is us grasping at a self that doesn't exist in the way. That is the wound that constantly is creating other wounds. And so attachment and aversion is coming from that.
And yes. So would you say that the 8 worldly dharmas are a way into our wounds? Like, is that kind of what I heard you saying? Like another way of accessing? No.
But looking at your 8 worldly dharmas can give you information. But the 8 worldly dharmas itself is more how we react on the day-to-day situation. On our feelings. So feelings arise in the mind and there is this immediate reaction. And the way that we are reacting is called the 8 worldly dharmas. We have attachment to certain things. We have aversion for other things. Right? But then I think when we speak about healing, we can go even deeper into these wounds of attachment that we have. I sometimes wonder if I look at Tibetans and how they are raised and how they, have all that compassion developed for generations in everyone, right? In the Tibetans, that is just the practice that you're doing. And then the child is born. That child will be taken care of in a different way than when you are a child of, I don't know, I grew up with parents that both had been in the war as young children, right? So they're already very, very wounded from that. And it is a different, I mean, they came with their own wounds, right? So very, very wounded parents, or you have parents that have practiced compassion for generations. What is the difference? What do we give to the child? So the way that our mind works is different, I think. So I think we need to do some extra work before we can really hear the teachings well. Right. And I think that sometimes, what I said before, we jump too far in the teachings. We believe that we can do all these great practices because they resonate so with us, but we oversee that there is actually some practice before that needs to be done. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. It's a helpful reframing of what's hidden in the 8 worldly dharmas that I hadn't really seen before. So thank you.
Yes, it's the way that we react. But we have even more in our mind. Yes. So with if we don't get what we need, if we have lots of unmet needs, I do think that as human beings we have this incredible need for connection. So what do we do when our needs are not met, right? What can we do? And there might be many things that we can do, but I came up with 2 things that can happen. One is that we end up in situations where we experience abuse, because abuse is better than nothing. You know, abuse gives kind of a feeling of connection. So sometimes we accept abuse because that is better than the not having any interaction. Have you ever thought about that? I don't know. So I think when you have lots of unmet needs, you might be more at risk for getting into abusive situations, because there might be the feeling that accepting the abuse is at least some kind of connection, while otherwise there is no connection, right? And then the other way that we can try to deal with unmet needs is that we go into an addiction. You know, that we look for the pain of not having met our needs is so intense that we cover it up with something that is driven by attachment. You know, it gives us a temporary pleasure in order not to feel the pain of the unmet needs. And so they did, I don't know where, a guy did some tests with rats. And they were thinking about, if we give rats a water or we give rats heroin, for sure they're going to choose the heroin, because, you know, that's gives some pleasure. I think, I'm not even sure what they do with drugs, but they had, you know, rats in a cage, and they gave them the choice to have water or to have drugs. And so they put one rat in one cage, and then they saw that the rats would choose for the heroin, and they became addicted. And then one guy thought, but actually this is not natural, because rats are living in families. So what would happen if I put the rat in the cage with the family, and I give them all kinds of tools that they can distract themselves and they can have fun with, and then I offer them water or heroin? What would they choose? You know? And then they found when the rats are happy, they choose water. They don't choose the heroin. You know, so then he said also that it's like, it shows what we need is connection. What we need is connection. We also need authenticity, and we need to find the balance between both of them, right? That we can become authentic in connection. And so in order to become authentic in connection, we need to do the work. No? We need to heal ourselves. We need to come to terms with what we went through in our life where we did not find connection. We need to find a way how to give that connection that we need. And we need to reconnect with ourselves and find that connection with our authenticity. Right? And in order to get there, we have to go to all these unpleasant parts in our mind where we prefer not to go. All the things in ourselves that don't feel pleasant are places where we have disconnected. Right? Any unpleasantness that we experience in relation to ourselves, there is a disconnect. When we are truly ourselves and truly connected with ourselves, there is not one place in ourselves that feels like, oh, I don't like that part of me. Once we connect with the places that we initially do not like, the not like is gone. Yeah, that's like, that cannot stay. Once we truly connect, there's no more dislike. It's like, we connect with something that we like. So when we have a lot of unpleasantness in our body and mind, and we start meditating on it, and we try to be mindful of these feelings, we don't like it, right? We can see the mind wants to get away. I don't want to be here. I don't like to be here. I am suffering. That's the nature of suffering. I don't want to be there when I'm suffering. So the aversion is there to protect you from that. But if I turn that around, and that is actually where the whole Tonglen practice is based upon, I turn that aversion around and I'm going to be with it. Initially, it's very, very unpleasant, but at a certain point, that feeling of unpleasantness dissolves back into the mind and it's gone. Then it's gone. It's gone. So there is no more unpleasantness right there. So if there's no unpleasantness and there's connection feels like pleasant. Right? So then all these parts in ourselves that we don't like and that we find not pleasant, we can turn them around. Once we connect with them, they become pleasant aspects of the mind. True. This is the Bodhisattva way of life, right? When we say that they take the delusions and swallow them and then transform them into the colors of the peacock. What we are doing is when aversion arises in the mind, we turn that around and we say, instead of I want to separate from the suffering, we say, give me the suffering. Give it to me. I'll take it. Right? I can do that with my own suffering. I am suffering. I want to get away from it. And instead of that, I say, I'll take it. This came on my plate. It's my suffering. I'll take it. And I swallow it and I feel it because it's mine. If I don't do that, if I don't take my suffering, what we often do is we pass it on, right? If I'm suffering inside and I get agitated because of that, and then the next person who says something to me that I don't like, I snap. I pass on my suffering because I can't cope with that. But the Bodhisattva says, I take it upon myself. So I try to sit with it, I'm mindful of it, and then I have the kind self-talk in order to guide me through that, in order to help me bear that suffering. And once I can feel that, the suffering disappears and I have a capacity that bears suffering. And we can say that is compassion, that is patience. Right? So independence upon that unpleasant feelings, these qualities I can develop in my mind. And then when happy feelings come, and it normally attachment comes that says, I want this, right? What the Bodhisattva says, I give it to others. I visualize that other people have the same as I have, or I might have a wish, right? I might have a lot of unmet needs. One way to deal with that is that instead of me saying, I want this, I need this, I have all these, these traumas, and in order to compensate for that, I need all this. But what I can maybe also say is, like, there are so many people who have these needs not met. For instance, the need to be loved, right? We all want to be loved. So what if I'm going to give that to others? What would happen? I know how it feels when you're not loved. It's very painful, very painful. So what if I'm going to help others to feel like that, so that they don't feel that pain that I'm feeling? And then while I'm doing that, what is really amazing is that feeling that I want love starts to disappear. By giving love to others, my need for love starts to disappear because I become full of love. And also when I love others, or when I give compliment to others, or when I tell them how much I appreciate them, at a certain point, that karma is also going to come back. And if there is still something of an unmet need within me, people start telling you how much they love you, that need might, be fulfilled. Or so I think when we practice the Bodhisattva's path, what we are actually doing is we are turning these reactions of attachment and aversion to pleasant and unpleasant feelings. We turn that around. We have seen how when we use these reactions, how they are deceptive and how they are not giving us what we actually need. I turn them around. And when I can turn them around, they're going to give me everything that I need. Right? So when aversion arises in the mind, and dependence upon suffering, and I say, okay, I'll take the suffering, what is going to happen is that I develop compassion. So instead of aversion, I generate compassion. Compassion has the power to free you from suffering. Aversion doesn't have that. Aversion looks like it is freeing you from suffering, but it is actually giving you suffering. Compassion truly gives you freedom from suffering. And when attachment arises, instead of grasping at what is in front of me, I learn to give it away to others. And attachment tells us, if you have this, you're going to be happy. While loving kindness is you create the causes for happiness, right? Loving kindness itself brings happiness. True. But I think when we practice bodhicitta, we really have to practice that. When we practice the Tonlang, as I just mentioned, we have to do that in connection with our own experience, with these 8 worldly dharmas. Then it becomes really powerful. So we first need to deeply connect with that suffering. We need to investigate what is behind that, so that it becomes familiar, so that it becomes not something that we want to get rid of, but something that we fully understand, and we can be present with that. Do you see the difference? I don't know. I'm more talking also about my own experience, and like the first 50 years that I was a nun, I would kind of jump over my own suffering and just practice bodhicitta, but I was never really looking into my own suffering. And then after that, I started to do that more. And I feel that that gave me so much more transformation in the mind than just practicing that bodhicitta without truly looking into my suffering. Yes, I'm suffering, so I practice bodhicitta. No, first go into the suffering. Connect with that, deeply connect with that. Then from there comes the practice of bodhicitta. Not to run away from your suffering, but from the suffering. Does that make sense? I'm seeing that it's 7 o'clock.
Yes.
So
yes.
to finish, I'll give me 1 more minute.
Please.
So healing for me is like learning to play an instrument, and the instrument is my body and my mind. It's like, in order to really heal the body and the mind, I need to learn about the instrument. I need to learn about music. I need to learn about how it all works, right? First intellectually, and then I start practicing. And what I want to do is I want to really fine tune so that the sounds that come out of it become really beautiful, so that really music is coming from the body and the mind. In order to make the music, we need to learn to really deeply listen and kind of understand where the body and the mind is resonating, what it needs, where it needs to be touched, and how hard or how soft it needs to be touched to make that music really beautiful. And for me, Buddhism is that. learning to play that instrument that is the body and the mind. And does Jamyang offer retreats with this? I did some courses at Tushita, but at the moment I'm here in France being the teaching assistant for the master's program. And it's very intense. And so I try in my holidays not to do too much. So at the moment I'm not doing too much. It's beautiful. It's very powerful, if you do this in a 10-day retreat. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any last quick questions before we dedicate and say goodbye and thank you?
Just like to say thank you for your guidance today. I have something to take with me and practice, and I'm very grateful for that.
You're very welcome. And I'm happy that you look so relieved. Thank you all very much to give me an opportunity to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Venerable. I personally have gotten a lot out of it, and I particularly appreciated the summary you kind of ended with. That I think I do personally look over the suffering that has been, and so you've really brought that to my attention, and so I really appreciate that. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, yes. But I think slowly we need to learn. No? We have this initial reaction to suffering. We react with aversion, and then we start practicing with that aversion. But only later can we see that how we are actually running away and using our practice to run away, And then we need to go a little bit deeper. Yes. And yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed doing these teachings.
Yeah.
I think when I teach the students from the master program, I feel that this is actually what we need to learn. This is what we need to learn. So then we become happy human beings, and then we can study the Dharma and we can teach the Dharma. But if we don't, we need to become a proper vessel for that. Right, so that we are happy and so that we live the teachings and not just talk about it. And yeah, and I think we do a lot of intellectual study, but we need to accompany that by really connecting with all the layers in our body and in our mind.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Shall we do a short dedication?
Yeah, let's do a dedication. And we can dedicate for whatever you feel is important, so you can, for instance, dedicate that whatever you have learned from that you will be able to put this into practice, and that you truly going to get a taste of what it means to be fully connected to yourself with all these beautiful parts in you that are maybe now looking a little bit ugly, but once you start turning them around, they all become like beautiful flowers. And I wish that you're all going to be very successful in practicing that. And then we can dedicate to, that these qualities that are going to arise from that, they keep increasing and increasing, and you're going to experience more and more joy and more energy to transform even more. And then from there, you can let it shine to others and help others, support others in their practice. And all this, of course, comes from the Buddha, and that comes to us through our teachers. And so we wish that we might receive the Dharma from these teachers through this whole life, many, many lifetimes. and that all these teachers might come back to us again and again, and that they have long and healthy lives, and that they are able to teach the Dharma to us, that we have all these conditions coming together. And then we can read the dedication prayers together. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then we make a small prayer also that the reincarnation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche might be found quickly, and that reincarnation might find all the conditions to become this incredible I'm not sure how you say that in English, but the continuation, that he might be able to continue in the work from Lama Zopa Rinpoche and support us here within the FPMT. And until then, may we be able to, actualize everything that Lama Zopa has asked us to do, and also may we be able to follow his example in all the practices to the best of our ability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venerable. Thank you, Yeshe. Thank everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all for your contributions and questions and the wonderful teaching. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks for being here, Sarah. Everyone also, Sheila, Linda, Katie.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.